So what brings you guys here?
Well, I've been told that only losers shoot from the hip, so my whole confidence got destroyed, and yeah, that's basically why I'm here.
Ah, great. Everybody is here already. All right, so my name is Dr. Robin and I will be your therapist for today's session. All right, today is a very beautiful day. What do you think about going outside and having our session outside in the park? Sounds good?
Okay.
Sure.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's go. All right, I think here is a pretty good spot, nice and shady, so let's get our therapy session started. So we therapists nowadays have a good understanding about the problem you're facing, and in order to deal with it, the best solution is, first of all, you have to understand what the problem is. So let's clarify this. Do you know what it means to shoot from the hip? Anybody has an explanation for it? It is just not looking through the viewfinder, just guessing the composition. Yes, you're correct. It means basically taking a photo without using the viewfinder or the LCD screen on your camera. I mean, there's good reasons to use the LCD screen over the viewfinder. For instance, if you shoot like a M, well, then you have to deal with the parallax problem. And that means sometimes your framing is not as accurate, especially if you're really close. In that case, it's better to use the LCD screen. So there's definitely legit reasons to use the screen instead of the viewfinder. So I would say shooting from the hip means you're not using the screen and you're not using the viewfinder. All right, everyone, with that out of the way, please give me your reasons why you shoot from the hip and I will let you know if it's legit or not, okay? Who goes first? You?
When I'm facing a potentially risky or dangerous situation, I like to use the technique of shooting from the hip.
I get it, and in this case, I think it totally makes sense. So, who's next? You?
Sometimes I don't have the time to bring up the camera and to properly frame the shot.
So yes and no, I would say. In that case, yes, if you don't have the time to bring up the camera, maybe take a shot. But what you can do is then maybe take another shot where you properly frame your image. And so you have basically a safe shot and another one. So you can basically use the technique. In that case, it's fine because sometimes in street photography, as you know, a split second can make a difference if you get the shot or not. So yeah, I think it's a legit reason. Next one, please. Okay, you? If you're as tall as me, then you are almost forced to shoot from a lower angle. Using the viewfinder is becoming a bit of a problem unless you like constantly crouch down in front of people. Okay, I'm getting your point and I understand why you shoot from the hip, but in your case, I would suggest you get a camera with a swivel screen so you can look down using the screen while framing your shot and you're not above everybody else, so you have a little lower angle. I think that for you, that would be the best option. And it's better than just shooting from the hip and just guessing. Or if you shoot film, then it's not as easy, but there's also a solution. You could get a camera with a waist level finder where you look down, and I think that should also work pretty well for you. All right, who's next? Okay, you?
Because I just have this anxiety to get into confrontation in general.
Well, a lot of my patients that seek for help, they have this problem. But I don't think that this should be a reason to use this technique of shooting from the hip. But let me explain. I think in your case, it's better to work on the problem that you have, the anxiety, because the constant shooting from the hip, it's just a symptom of a much bigger underlying problem. And I think it's better to maybe get rid of that instead of just relying on shooting from the hip. All right, who is next? Okay, you?
What about when you simply have no option to get closer and you can't see the screen, or when you shoot film?
That is a good point, and I already had this when I was, for instance, when I was shooting the Tomatina festival. I wrapped my camera in kitchen plastic to prevent it from getting hit with stinky tomatoes. So in that case, I had instances where I couldn't really see the screen because of the kitchen plastic that was wrapped above the screen. So in that case, I had to rely on guessing my composition, but only a few times. It worked out well, but yes, in that case, I think it totally makes sense. Another very similar reason could be if you cannot get as close as you would like to your subject and you have to stick out your arms, maybe in a big crowd of people or whatever. So there could also be a reason, so you have to extend your arms, and sometimes you cannot see your screen and you have to take a shot. It was similar for me when I was shooting the Thaipusam festival in Kuala Lumpur, because there were so many people. I was just extending my arms into the crowd and just pressing the shutter. And it basically was shooting from the hip because I couldn't really see my framing. So yeah, good reasons. All right, who's going next? Okay, you.
But how can I shoot from the hip to increase the chance of success?
Okay guys, here's what I would recommend. So when you use a camera and you want to shoot from the hip, I would say you should use a wide angle lens, like in this case a 28, maybe even a little bit wider than that. You set your aperture to f8 or maybe go to f11 or f16, get as much in focus as possible. Then you set your distance maybe to 1.5 to, let's say, 2 meters. But you could also use autofocus. In this case here with this camera, it has face detection, and in continuous focus it worked pretty well when I stopped down the lens to f11, so you can use that, but I would say it's better to stick with manual focus. And for shutter speeds, I would suggest at least 500, maybe 1/1000th, and then you're good to go. Set maybe your ISO to auto, and then you're pretty much good to go. And maybe if you want to increase the chance of getting a good shot, shoot burst mode, so we have a few frames to select from. But what I would highly suggest is use this technique wisely and don't overuse it, because it can have consequences.
Really?
Yes, there are legit risks involved when you shoot from the hip. For instance, you give up control over your composition because you're not looking at the screen or through the viewfinder, so it's not 100% guaranteed that you get your composition right, or it's almost 100% guaranteed that you will not get it right. So after that, when you come home, you have to crop the images to maybe get the composition the way you want. It's not ideal. And also, you're missing out on different techniques of photography, so it's limiting you in your development as a photographer. For instance, you will probably never use flash, so that could be a downside, I would say. And also, if you want to get layered shots, which I think everyone should try, it's getting a lot harder to get the layers in your shot because of the lack of control over your composition, if that makes sense. And if you're afraid getting caught and getting into confrontation, maybe if you shoot from the hip and someone is catching you, it makes things even worse, because then it comes across even more creepy when you have the camera here and somebody is coming after you and saying, hey, you just took my photo. So I think in that case, it's also one downside of shooting from the hip. Any more questions, anyone?
No, nah.
I think I got it. Okay, great. I think you guys are ready to use this technique more appropriately from now on. And just after this session here, hop over to my website and sign up for my newsletter. And in case there's new evidence and science coming up regarding your problem or new solutions for it, I will let you know. Now you have successfully completed this therapy session, and to celebrate the big success,
you can download now my brand new Lightroom presets that I've worked on in the last few months, and that will not only make editing your photos very easy, but they will also give your images a very cinematic feel to them. And they work with JPEGs and RAW files. Check them out, you'll find the link in the video description.
So everyone, good luck and enjoy shooting.